Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward. Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast, paranormal talk with heart and soul. Tonight's segment is pre-recorded, streaming on United Public Radio Network 107.7 New Orleans, 105.3 the Gulf Coast, YouTube, and any place you find your favorite podcast. I'm your host, Kat Ward. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. So, my dear Haunted Hearts, for segment 77, I am joined by Dana Nedrelo. Oh, and I apologize. I should have asked how to spell the name, how to pronounce the name correctly. I hope I didn't butcher it, Dana. So he is a biologist and herpetologist known for his work in vertebrate zoology and wildlife conservation. Alongside his mainstream scientific career, he's spent decades researching Bigfoot / Sasquatch, whatever you want to call this big, beautiful beast, reports, and has been affiliated with the Bigfoot Field Researchers organization. He has also appeared on Sasquatch-related media projects, including Searching for Sasquatch 6, What Lurks in the Darkness. So please help me welcome Dana. Hello, Dana.
Hello. First of all, one thing as we get to know each other better.
Yes.
You can call me Dan.
Oh, Dan. Oh, thank you so much. Okay.
No problem. There's two deals with the Dana thing.
Uh-huh.
One, I just go by it and everything's fine. But it comes from Dan A. Nedrelo. Nedrelo. Rhymes with hello. So I've got two Facebook timelines. One for biologists, conservationists, models, photographers, artists, people involved in, natural history of animals, zoologists, biologists, zoo people, all that. And I don't use the word Sasquatch or Bigfoot in that timeline or Facebook.
Okay.
But then I thought, I've got to have one that I can focus on. So what am I going to do? Not being familiar with setting up some of the devices, I came up with just putting the A over to make Dana. And so for those who, once they get to know me, they know who I am. But I've never changed it. So I go by, you can call me Fred. I'll still answer. So all good.
Call me anything. Just don't call me late for dinner.
That's exactly right.
I absolutely love that you have a research in biology or background in biology, and it really helps with your Bigfoot research, because I absolutely love whenever I have a guest on and they have like a scientific background as well, whether they've worked in a scientific field or they're just very, very knowledgeable. To me, I find it really, really helps with the research and studying that a person's doing.
Totally agreed. I kind of I don't promote myself much. I spend most of my time working with witnesses. So, but I would like to work with anybody who's interested in working with me. And some are, some aren't. Some people share a lot. Some share very little, and some share nothing at all. So it's an interesting group of personalities that we have as we all come back to learn more about this incredible unverified primate. Yeah. My specific background is when I was in third grade, I decided I wanted to be a herpetologist. So I'm kind of like the older American version of Steve Irwin in a sense.
Yeah, okay.
And I traveled to 44 different states: Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Canada, all for wildlife photography, herpetology, and looking for our big friends. And I started that interest when I was 10, which I'll date myself. That was 67 when the Patterson film came out. And my teacher, Mrs. Betty Weber, made the mistake of saying the words abominable snowman. And I was extremely interested in all our wonderful great apes. And so I was familiar with the gorillas, the bonobos, chimpanzee, and orangutans, now of which we have 3 species. Well, what's interesting was when she said that, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And so I immediately grabbed the Britannica Encyclopedia at a buddy's house, and it was in there, Yeti, Himalayas. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And so I started grabbing. The first book I grabbed was Ivan T. Sanderson's Abominable Snowman: Legend Come to Life.
Mhm.
I studied that. I've got that actual book from middle school and high school that I checked out 25 times or
You
more.
still have it? Or did you bring it back?
The library had a sale, and I was there and
Nice.
found that book, and
Yep.
and my name was from top to bottom on it. All my signatures from 5th grade until 12th grade. So
Yeah.
that was kind of comical, you know.
So for I just want to interrupt for a second. So for those of you from the younger generation, back in the day when you would take out a library book, when you opened it up, there was a page glued in there, and they would write the date that you took it out and everything. I don't believe they do. I think it's all digital now, but yeah, that's how they used to do it back in the day.
That's how they used to do it. And I'm a really old guy now, so I have no business doing any of this, but I'm going to anyway. So thanks for hanging. In the meantime, one thing led to another, and as I studied my reptiles and amphibians, I decided if I'm going to do what I want, which is like really travel, and my whole interest on this planet is the natural history and the life of different animals, I better record it and document it. So I became a professional wildlife photographer as well. So I'm published in over 150 different books and magazines. I was fortunate enough after college to meet a fellow who had the same interest as me, and we hooked up and traveled all over the United States together. His name is Alan Blake Sheldon, and he's published more than I am. But if it sucked there, we wanted a picture of it.
Yeah.
And now getting back to the Sasquatch situation, I had my first experience without knowing it when I was 14 at a church camp up in northern Wisconsin in Pine Woods.
Oh, and Wisconsin, that's a hot spot for Bigfoot.
What basically happened was we had something at about midnight or 11 o'clock at night walking behind the vegetation in a lake edge in the water splashing, hissing at us like a bull snake, which is what our Wisconsin Pichawofus is. And it was a loud, but it was so loud. I was 100+ feet away and I couldn't feel it, but I just couldn't believe how loud it was. And I didn't get a chance to match that vocal until I was in my 40s when I talked to other friends who out of Michigan had recorded them doing that particular call, and I've since talked to other people that have heard it. So that was the first personal experience with that. I for the next 20 years, I spent a lot of my time on river bluffs studying timber rattlers. So I would be just literally walking at the base of a river bluff along the Mississippi River or some of the stream bottoms, tributaries, and going up on these hills looking for this particular species of rattlesnake and everything else that moved. And not once did I find a structure. Not once did I find something that would suggest that there are Sasquatches in the area. And I could not understand that. I couldn't figure out where are they. And so that, I remember now too, back then, I didn't have anybody to talk to about this. Not until I met my photo partner. He was interested. And but at the college, I ended up with a degree in wildlife biology and majored in vertebrate zoology, and my minor was museum techniques. And so that incorporated environmental education. So I ended up behind a microphone a lot, and that ended up to be a big part of my career. And I'm probably going to sound a little bit like Elmer Fudd right now because I broke a filling and I've got a shark tooth punching in my
right. How are you doing with that?
Well, you're hearing me.
Yeah. Is the pain gone, I hope?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm all healed up and ready to go. Got to have the tooth adjusted, but I decided I can talk well enough to hopefully be at least somewhat interesting. So we'll see.
Okay.
Long story short, I never had an experience, and I couldn't figure it out. Well, by the time in 2000, first of all, I'd been spending all my time. I think I ran to Florida 18 times by 1997, and virtually every state except for Maine and a couple of those. And I worked for the National Wildlife Federation for 2 years in North Carolina, worked for a private zoo in Missouri, volunteered work for the Milwaukee Public Museum in Haiti and Dominican Republic, and then hooked up with a buddy of mine who bought land in Costa Rica, and I went there and I did all the things that we love to do, just explore, photograph everything that everything from monkeys and birds to insects to whatever. No Sasquatches, no tracks, no vocalizations. What's going on? In 2000, my mother passed.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry
my
to hear
sister
that.
made a bet with me. She said, I bet number one, you don't become computer literate. And number two, I'll bet that you don't network professionally to research these giants. And you can't let your little sister win a bet. So one thing led to another, and I learned more about the computer and got on and started finding things. And a fella kept coming up with claims of Wisconsin reports. And so I started interacting with him. And I got to the point where I was almost harassing him. And he finally said, "Who are you?" He said it more vibrantly than that. But anyway, I told him, and he said, "What kind of a background you got?" And I told him, and he said, "I think you're somebody we're looking for." And I'm like, "Really?" And it turned out to be the BFRO under Matt Moneymaker. It happened to be his partner, Ron Schaffner, at the time. And he wanted to know my background, and I gave it to him. And I wanted to know, are you guys making a profit off this? Are you just leading people into, benefits or what's your motive? And once he explained it, I thought, what better way to learn than to work with these guys and learn more? So I jumped in. Wasn't long before I had the key, and pretty soon there were tracks to look at, vocalizations to listen to, people to meet, and I was filled with far, far, far too much energy than I should have had. So I was like, bah, 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 bah. And at the end of 1 year, I gained 50 pounds. My typing went from 35 words a minute to 105.
Wow.
Well, off the phone, and I was calling everybody from coast to coast all the time. And it was great because I was meeting some of the people like John Green, who and John Bindernagel, who wrote some of the books that interested me in it in the first place. In the case of John Green, with Abominable Snow, or let's see, what was it? Basically, it was Apes Among Us, and I forget the name of the book. But that was my Bible for 20 years because remember, I had no one to talk to.
Yeah.
Nobody. I had never seen any field sign or secondary evidence of these guys. So I'm like, what's going on? If they're here, they're incredibly cryptic. Why? What's going? What is this? Because by that time I'd learned all the natural history pre-internet on them, with all the literature available. The Renee DeHenden's book and Peter Byrne and John Green and numerous other people. And about that time, Thomas Steenberg was coming to the forefront, and John Bindernagel was in the mix. We had Grover Krantz. So I knew some basics. I was a little probably too proud of my knowledge, and so that would easily rub somebody the wrong way. But I was so enthusiastic about this stuff. But nothing happened until 2010. I had several things happen that year. One, I found a woman who had activity on her property, and I basically found out about it because she said, well, something was in the basement, and we locked the door. And I moved into the house, and she had divorced her husband. And she said something came in the property at 2:00 in the morning and screamed for 15 minutes. It was loud and skull splitting. I was paralyzed in my bed for 5 minutes, moved out into the kitchen with my dogs, and we just huddled, and it was just terrifying. And rats and mice were coming up through the floorboards and disoriented, unable to walk properly. It's as though something from the vocals affected their orientation.
Like the infrasound.
Exactly.
Yep.
Or But whatever's going on, that was legitimate to me.
Mhm.
And so I stayed on that property and worked with her more. And that's where I got my first Wisconsin vocalization. And it was basically, I had my recorder going, fortunately, and I had canines arguing up to the top of the hill. And that was coyote and dog.
Mhm.
And so you get and then all of a sudden we get a pardon me as I shut this off. I'm sorry. Thank you. I know. I just infamiliarity with my telephone is awful. So anyway, then what happens is we get a that goes across the valley and through the hills. And I'm sitting there going, yes, couldn't believe it. So happy. Finally, I got a vocalization I couldn't explain. I didn't see the sound maker, so I don't know. But I got secondary evidence from that location later on. And so that was a big, big thing. And then later on, luckily, my cousins were with me, and we got out and we got some Ohio Scream calls in response to wood knock surveys. We got rocks and gravel thrown at us. We got individuals coming toward the vehicle that could be picked up on the parabolic microphone.
Mhm.
And luckily, my cousin one afternoon was riding south across from Iowa and looked up on the hill with his binocs to do a deer check. And here's a big brown man stepped out of the brush, bent over and picked something up and went back into the brush. He didn't tell his wife for 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
He finally, over a campfire, told me. So that was very, very important. And so I'm accepted by my family now.
Good.
And my sister, incidentally, she's seen 3. She lives in
Wow.
Florida. She lives in Florida.
Mhm.
So
That's
I'll let you ask
amazing.
questions, but that was the initial part of it. And
Yeah.
since then, when I was in the BFRO back in 2000 to 2004, I started working with families that had presence. And I had people in Indiana, Virginia, and Tennessee simultaneously. So I could make comparisons with what was going on with footprints, vocalizations, and behavior. And so I learned a lot through that.
Hmm.
And I was criticized by many people simply because, uh, you know, I either knew too much or I had unfamiliar, uncomfortable information,
Hmm.
or who knows what. But now I pretty much just work with witnesses because I really don't have time for argument and drama. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that
Oh, yeah.
in this competition for knowledge or whatever people are after.
That there is, and it really bothers me because I feel as if everybody pulls together and presents their information from the research that they've done or their personal experiences instead of criticizing each other, we might be able to find that last piece of the puzzle as to what this creature is. And so let's just love each other. Like, stop criticizing each other. And I mean, it's okay to disagree with somebody, you know.
Let's just do so respectfully.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah. And it really,
And my take is, if pardon me for interrupting, but
it's okay.
if you haven't made a mistake, you haven't done much.
Yeah.
This trek is littered with mistakes and misinformation and all kinds of false directions.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get through that. Been there, done that, and not everybody's willing to exude the time and energy and commitment that it takes to understand certain things.
Yeah.
And so we end up being very excited and negative over some things that some of us have learned 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if someone is misinformed or doesn't have a lot of information, but they're interested in being in the field, instead of criticizing that individual, just help educate them and, like I said, share your information.
Which is exactly, as you can see, what I'm doing. And the goal
Kudos
here
to
is, and the goal here is to, if somebody's over in this area, they might see something.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be part of the missing puzzle. So let's just share that and grow together. I'll share mine, you share yours. Not everybody's willing to do that. And so my focus is on the people that are. Good. And fortunately, there are a lot of people like that. So I feel very, very, very lucky and honored to have the network that I do. So
that's awesome.
Which led to you.
Thank you. Thank you to Sabine Blais who sent me to you and you to me. So thank you. Merci. Un gros merci, Sabine. Huge thank you, Sabine. I find it so interesting that Bigfoot is not just found in North America. I mean, he's found everywhere, and they might have a little bit of a difference in coloration or facial features, or some of them are taller, some of them are shorter. Like you mentioned earlier, there's the Yeti, the Yowie in New Zealand. I mean, there's so many different names. I mean, all these creatures are everywhere, and it's really fascinating to me that so many people around the world are experiencing this, and I love it that they're sharing their experiences.
What makes the mystery so incredibly interesting is the validity of the continued secondary evidence that comes from so many different sources that matches. Mm-hmm. And Cliff Brackman likes to call this congruent information, which it is. And what is interesting about that is if this is legit, then that means that the species is legit. Mm-hmm. But yet we don't have a verified part of the body, or at this time, recognized DNA. Mm-hmm. So as a result, it's not something that science can actually get involved with at a level of satisfaction to all. Mm-hmm. So we are in an incredible deep mystery right now because of lack of evidence for so many. There are people that have spent their life, and I've had one fellow sent me information on, I've been in the Adirondacks for 18 years. I haven't seen any sign of it at all. When I was in southwestern Wisconsin working those timber rattlers, I didn't have any signs of it at all either. But it wasn't too long before I learned a couple of techniques that changed all that. And I've since found other places where they are. Plus, if they are suspect to environmental advantages, mm-hmm. then like a deer or a bear or a cougar, they're going to benefit from our wildlife management procedures. In Wisconsin, we have up to 1.8 million white-tailed deer. Wow. We have 25,000 black bear guesstimated, 1,600 to 800 wolves in the state, and we've had cougar the whole time, but they would not say that publicly. In other words, now there's just a few transient males coming through, but they're not going to stay because, my goodness, they aren't finding females. Well, I can differ with that, but I won't say anything except that in time that will change. And the timelines of when there's been reproduction and things like that, there's unverified situations, there's verified situations, and there's a lot of quiet on wildlife species that are, shall I say, troublesome, because the cougar can take a human life and affect our deer population, according to many. And that's a controversial species that costs time and money to manage. And if it's not here, you don't have to put that money or time into it. Mm-hmm. So it's much easier to manage it by saying, well, it's not really here yet, so cool your jets. If we can't handle cougar east of the Mississippi River, how in the world are we going to handle ape men?
Oh, I get a lot of people saying that they've spent a lot of time in the forest and they've never seen a Bigfoot. And they want to experience one. Well, being Canadian, I obviously have spent time in the wilderness as well, camping with my parents as a youth, and I know there's deer and fox and bear and things like that in the woods. Have I ever seen one? No. Very rarely do I see them in the woods. But the community we live in, sometimes we see deer running on the road here, trying to cross the road, or we actually have black bear too. Sometimes you'll see one walking down the boulevard, but yeah, in the woods, no. And plus, we know they're there, but we don't see them. So how can you say that maybe Sasquatch doesn't exist just because you haven't seen one?
Good point.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen a good explanation for the fakery of the really good footprints, the really good vocalizations, and the carcass signatures that they leave on their kills, whether white-tailed deer, cattle, small game, or other livestock. So I was fortunate enough to hook up with a man named Shane Carpenter, who's out of the Ozarks in Missouri, and he's been tracking a clan of them now for quite a few years. And in 2018, I met him at his home after coming back from Texas, and he said, "Yeah, I want you in the field with me next year." So in 2019, I was able to go down with him and his partner at the time. Several of them aren't there now, but interestingly enough, I got there at 2:30 and 2:45 in the morning, and as we walked the trail, here we had through night vision a youngster peeking around brush. Shane walked up on him 7 feet away and sat down, and they looked at each other. Shane was so excited he shined his light into the eyes of this individual, who was a smaller fella, maybe 150 or less, 5'4", 5'6". He left footprints of 10.25 inches. And there are many, many, many cast prints and photographs of that individual, his sibling. And now in 2023, I was back again, and there was another youngster who at the time was 6-inch prints. In September 23, he had 10-inch prints, and I was able to photograph those prints, and Shane had cast them. And there were 2 visuals on the little new guy. And what's exciting about that is we found that particular week a new set of 6-inch prints. So Mama had another youngster. And so he's in the process of tabulating the information that goes with this, but he's got a lot of information on behavior and interactions and exchanges. I have a 4-ounce quartz rock that was thrown at me that landed near my feet. And at the time we were so excited we didn't do a heat check on it because we could have theoretically got a picture of the hand that threw it. But that's okay. Those are things that will happen in the near future. So, but I just wanted to mention that I did get my feet wet. I've had 3 sightings so far, and I've had situations happen where I'm sure they were very, very close nearby.
What color were they?
The youngsters in Missouri were black, but I was just asked to speak in Alabama by Anita Collier, and that was in June last year. And after I was done in Alabama on the 6th, I drove north, and on the 9th, I was visiting. I visited a number of people, but on the 9th, I was visiting a mother-daughter team. And it was so comical because I'd gotten there at 5 o'clock, relaxed, had a wonderful supper, talked, and we were going to go out and visit the other house, which is near a gully where they get vocalizations and they get footprints in the garden. Youngsters playing with things in the garden. And I'm sitting back in the chair talking with her, and there's on the window, which is 3 feet by 4 feet, there's blinds. And so there's strips of blinds on the window. And I'm sitting there talking to her, and I realize I'm seeing a figure walking along the road or the driveway at the edge of the trees. 1, 2, 3, gone. And the way I would describe it is if you had a cartoon and the guy was looking out the window, and then you'd have that little cloud of what they were saying or thinking. It would be filled with question marks and exclamation marks, because I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at. The common sense is, well, that's got to be the husband. And he's heading toward the door. So he'll be in just a little bit. But as I thought about it, he walked by these flowers at the flowering dog tree. And the flowers were in segment 2. And the head of the individual was segment 4. So it was significantly higher than the flowers. So he did come in wearing a green shirt, and I asked, how many people do you have out here? Well, there isn't anybody around. And I'm like, okay. And I looked at my friend, and she smiled, and I said, okay, you know what happened, because we discussed it. I said, would you walk the path so I can see what it's like with you at your height walking out? She's 5'1". I couldn't see her. So then she came in, took my chair. I went out. She said she could see the top of my cap, which would be about 5'10". Well, as I was out there walking the path of the figure that I saw, I followed it by the flowers on the flowering dogwood tree and put my hand up, and they were higher up than my hand, which would have gone about 7 feet. So that means that this individual was at least a head higher than the flowers, which would have put it at least 8 feet. And it wasn't standing perfectly straight. So I don't know how tall it actually was.
Yeah.
It was reddish brown. It was lanky like a basketball player. And it moved gracefully. I only saw it from the hips up. And it seemed otherworldly to me in the way that it moved. And that's been referred to a lot. So I find that very interesting. It didn't have a round head. Its head was more, I wouldn't say cone, but it was somewhat pointed.
Yep.
And it didn't look my direction. And it was far enough away I couldn't get a lot of good detail. But it was a unicolored reddish brown. And we've seen other secondary evidence from that area in the river system. This was northeastern Indiana, by the way.
Okay.
But I have 100 and some reports out of Indiana. And as a matter of fact, I just got a 14-inch print from a friend of mine. And he said that was a female out of Indiana. And there's a lot of arguments on the footprints because they look so human. And what's interesting about that is even Dr. Meldrum had stated to one of our senior researchers in Illinois, the juveniles are really difficult to discern from humans because they are so similar in structure. Now, boy, that sure opens some eyes regarding the relationship to us.
Yeah, it does.
How could they not be closely related if they had a foot like that?
How deep are some of these footprints? And I understand that the terrain would have a factor in it, but yeah.
Exactly. There have been some that have been very, very, very deep, indicating a heavy weight. I have a friend of mine originally from Michigan he was visiting his grandfather in Michigan in 1993, and he's a retired police officer now. And so part of his survival method is to be good at guesstimating distance, height, girth, weight, things of that nature, because sometimes it's a bad situation regarding self-defense when you're dealing with people that are aggressive with weapons. Well, he was deer hunting on his grandfather's property in lower northwestern Michigan, and something was banging on the house regular, and he was attributing it to people that had too much alcohol and didn't think too much about it. But the morning before season, I believe, I have to double check that. He came out at 10 o'clock in the morning and walked around the house. And here was a very gorilla looking man that he found out later measured 8 feet 4. Wow. That was just standing there looking at him with it was kind of expressionless. But when he went to reach for his pistol, it changed its demeanor and turned and walked off. Now, he wasn't aggressive at all.
Mm-hmm.
He had his hand on a branch, so he was able to determine the height of that branch, and the hand was very close to the top of the head,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where he got 8 feet 4. And I asked him, how about the weight? And he said, it had to be 800 plus.
Wow.
And we get that regularly. A friend
That's
of
a
mine
big boy.
yes. A friend of mine is Fred Roll up in Alaska. He has 275 accounts of Sasquatches in Alaska. And many of them tower 10 feet and possibly more than that. He's convinced they make 12. I've met other people convinced they make 12. That would be roughly a 24-inch footprint. The weight, and we've got plenty of researchers that don't think they're going to go beyond 8. But honestly, our record-sized human was 8 feet 7 or 8 feet 9. So, it's entirely possible that we could have some extreme individuals. Plus, how do we know for sure that all these hair-covered giants are the same? I'm not convinced of that, especially when some look like gorillas and some look like people, and some look like gorillas with caveman faces, and some look like Native Americans, and some look like Caucasians, some look like black people, some look like white people, and some people. It's just on and on and on. Now, obviously, with our species, our races, we've got small pygmies from the tropics, and then we have giant people that play center in the NBA. So, National Basketball Association.
And look at Andre the Giant, too, that wrestler. I mean,
yes.
Wow.
Yes. We have a lot of people that are big and heavy, 400, 500 pounds. And so it's entirely feasible that we could have a giant ape man that has characters we're unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Let me ask you. So, so back in the day, when I first heard about Bigfoot, obviously it was a Gimlin Patterson film. And back then people would just talk about sightings and footprints and then hear the vocalizations. Now it seems like the past, 15 years or so, I could be off on the time frame, but now they seems to have all these abilities. Some of them can cloak. Do you think this is perhaps two different species, or is it the same one and we're just learning more about them?
Those are great questions.
Thank you.
And until more people experience the out of bounds characters, often referred to as woo or extra, most people just wipe that off the map and roll their eyes, but it all remains to be verified. It's unverified. And we have a lot of strong personalities out there. We have a lot of people with very small filters. And so it's very difficult to discern what's real and what's not. And so my feelings are, if you look at the wonderful illustrations that some of our people have, notably Sibylla Christina Irwin, her work is really detailed. Another good friend of mine who has the same characters about dealing with detail and accuracy from a witness description is Alexa Evans. And these people have created amazing illustrations. And some of them show different types of what I would think they'd have to be different species. Some of them are very gorilla looking, very great ape looking.
Others, some of them have baboon faces. We
have, and it's fun that you mention that because I have a friend that ran into a giant baboon in southern Mississippi. Saw 2 of them. And I asked him, is it possible that this could be our dog man? And he said, I could see that. Because it was and baboons are simply dog-faced monkeys. And there has to be at least 5 different things that masquerade under the name dog man. I don't spend any time with that because no one has been able to give me legitimate tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure viewers are going to argue me till they're blue in the face about that, but I welcome them to send me legitimate tracks.
Yep.
We have legitimate tracks that I believe are from Sasquatches.
Yep.
I don't see that out of dogmen. Do I believe that there are dogmen? I have friends that do. I have
Mm-hmm.
no reason to doubt them. But until I know more, I'll just stay with my Sasquatches
Yeah.
thing.
I would much rather encounter a Sasquatch than a Dogman because Sasquatch, yes, you can have some really bad encounters, but some of them are very gentle with humans. But all the encounters for Dogman, none of them seem to be really good encounters.
Well, I've got exception to that because I've had some claims that were very nice.
Oh, okay.
But my first question is if these things are so horrific and bad, how come everybody survives the experience? And with my network
That's a
of,
good
of
point. Yep.
over 5,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
why don't I have deaths from Dogman in that network? I
Mm-hmm.
don't. I don't have any from Sasquatches either. I've
Mm-hmm.
got a couple where people passed away and it was said what happened. And so there easily could be, but it certainly is not a common event.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, and also one of the reasons I was interested in the Dogman reports is because I thought, what an easy way to get more Sasquatch reports.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of these folks are looking at things from a distance, one, two, in the dark, three, terrified out of their minds, four, a short period of time, five, often the target is moving so quickly, details are difficult to discern.
Yep.
A lot of the reports are, I know it was a dogman. I'm sure it was a dogman. Well, that's great, but I base most of my work off secondary evidence,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not seeing the secondary evidence. So, like I said, I'll just sit back and let the Dogman pros work that, and I'm all interested in that. But I did talk to one woman who wouldn't let me interview her. All my
Oh.
interviews in the book. You can just read the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. But I did say, okay, can you answer one question? Is there any chance that what you saw looked at all like a baboon? And she's like, oh my gosh, you're the first person to ask me this. My
Wow.
gosh, that's exactly what it looked like. Well,
But much bigger.
that's a little bit more scientifically acceptable. And I've noticed some of the illustrations that some of these folks come up with,
Mm-hmm.
and they look very, very, very primate.
Hmm.
So, whatever it is, if it's real, and I believe that there's an excellent chance that the giant baboons are real,
Mm-hmm.
but there can't be too many of them. But on the other hand, we would say the same thing about Sasquatches. So I'll just roll it all into a great big ball, throw some sugar on it, and say, what a wonderful mystery that allows us all to work together and meet incredible personalities, fantastic people. And let's just keep this fun and learn as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my so as you and my viewers know, my background is in investigating like ghosts, like the paranormal,
Mm-hmm.
and I started branching because I used to think paranormal was only ghosts, but it's not. It could be cryptids like the Bigfoot, aliens, UFOs. It's so many things, and I think the first guest that I had on about Sasquatch was William Jevning,
Yep.
who
I know
became a
Bill.
dear friend. Yeah, he's an amazing guy. Yeah. I remember when we were living in Alberta for a couple of years, family and I, before we were moving back to Ontario, we were going to be going to we're going to be going camping. And it's funny, I was reading on my phone from the BFRO site. Just sightings that were reported in the area that we were in. I can't remember the name of the community that we were in. I see, so we're on the highway. I see the sign, and I'm like, oh, I just literally read that because I read it to the family, and all of a sudden, so you got the highway and you have the woods on the other side, but you have quite a bit of clearance between the forest and the highway, and all of a sudden, to the right, we saw this. Sadly, it was a dead horse, but the whole hindquarters I was just like, we should have turned back to take pictures. It looked like, I even looked at my husband and said, what could have shredded the hindquarters of that? I mean, did it get hit by a transport truck? Was it a wildcat? Like, what the heck happened? So I messaged Will. I'm like, oh my God, I just happened to be reading about this particular location, and I see the sign, and then all of a sudden I see this on the right, and it's just like, I want to go back and see it, but my husband wanted to get to the campsite, and it's just like, ugh. But I kick myself now for not saying we have to go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish I could remember the name of the community, but what are the odds of me reading that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I see a sign, and this, I'm just reading about that encounter, and then I see this. I kind of like it was really amazing, but I still don't know what it was. And I tried to look, because I asked him, I said, have you actually heard in any newspapers or anything like that if there was something that happened here? And at the time he didn't, so I don't know. I'll have to maybe reach out again, but I don't remember the name of the location. But yeah, it was just like, what are the odds, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of situations like that, and we don't really usually get a chance to follow them up. And then all of a sudden it's a report from 2 years ago or 4 years ago, and the evidence is not fresh anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I did mention Sibylla, and I do have to say something. When Shane walked in on that juvenile, on my first sighting where I got to see him through night vision, I asked him, what did he look like? And I'll send you the picture if I haven't.
Yeah.
Sibylla drew a 6-foot male from Oklahoma when she got a phone call from an investigator from a BFRO. And the man said to her, I'm looking at him now. Do you want to draw him? And she said, well, yeah. And she grabbed the illustration work, and he described what he saw, and she was able to draw what he saw. And out of all the images she's done and what Shane saw, that's the one he picked, said that's what you look like.
Wow.
Now, make sure I send you that.
Yeah, I have to, I'm just going to check. I know you sent me a photo that was like that, but I just want to see.
It might be that I did send it to you. It's a youngster. Some people would say it might be female, but it's not. He was 6 feet, and he was crouched down. And he ended up crouching down behind some boulders and just peeking and looking to the sky. So we got the face very, very close. And I find that remarkable. To me, that's the most accurate illustration she's done so far. Now, she might say otherwise, and she may have good reason. But in my mind, when you can do the drawing with somebody who's looking at it over the phone, that's hot material, I'd say. That's just nothing but fun.
And that is very, that's talented.
Oh, she's good. She's real good. SibyllaIrwin.com is what your listeners can go to find more, or just Google her name, and her base will come up, and you can see many of her illustrations. She's absolutely amazing. Alex doesn't do it anymore, but she is still very vibrant and very interested in what's going on. I'm going to be doing a lot of my footprint work with her because I want her eye on some of the discrepancies that we're getting. And as far as other interesting things, you were talking about the paranormal aspect of Sasquatches. Well, the more we know about great apes and what they really can do, I think that's going to help us. And I love to bring up the fact that Coco the gorilla she was said to sign 1,000 words.
That's incredible.
If that's true, had she had the anatomy to speak them, she could. And we do believe that it's entirely possible, at least some Sasquatches have that ability. I have a friend, Julie Wrench, in North Carolina, and she hears vocalizations sometimes from the woods that sound just like her husband calling her name.
Wow.
And he has heard vocalizations calling her name.
That's creepy.
She has put up some of the sounds that she's recorded. But there are many, many, many people now recording in all areas of the United States. And luckily, we're getting repeat vocals, calls, words, things of that nature. So I think as this information comes out, we're going to be very surprised as to what's available. In an exchange that I had that may or may not have been legit, I don't know, but seems like it was suggested to me that the old ways of communication are often utilized, so because our people wouldn't know about that. So that's interesting. And a friend of mine told me that she had an experience where a female that she didn't know simply stated to her, apparently telepathy-wise, and I know nothing about this, but the point was, your kind talks too much. Yeah, I thought that was just wonderful. Now, did that really happen? She knows. Do I believe her? Yes, but it hasn't happened to me. But I've got other friends that do not want it publicly announced that they've had experiences too. In my own case, as a scientist, it's really hard to say. I'm a retired DNR biologist from Wisconsin. I'm a herpetologist. I spent my time studying rattlesnakes, but I'm also interested in every aspect of crocodilians, snakes, lizards, turtles, frogs, amphibians, tuatara in New Zealand, just the whole smear. And it all started because of dinosaurs, but there weren't any, supposedly. But Adam Davies tells me otherwise with the creature in Africa. So, interestingly enough, where was I going with this? I was going with what happened to me on that study site at that woman's property. I was severely burned in 2018.
Oh, sorry to hear about that.
Well, it was a very stressful situation. Not details aside, I ended up in the hospital for 17 days with skin graft surgery. The leg isn't perfect yet, and I still have problems from it, and it's infection prone, so I have to be careful. Anyway, what's interesting is when I came back to the private property where I was doing interactions on the trading block, on the second day, there was a plant called burdock. And burdock is like a sticker type plant. And I'm looking at it, and the roots were torn off. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on? So I immediately went in. I don't know enough about plants. I'm learning, and I'm studying nutrition. I'm going to be 70 in a couple of years, so I'd really like to have a good handle on my health condition and my nutrients. But anyway, I looked up burdock, and it said, I see I'm too close to the camera. Whoops. But anyway, I looked up burdock, and it said, this is really great for topical use for burns. And I checked the roots, and it said these are carcinogen inhibitor. And I'm like, thank you. Apparently I don't need them. That's great. And what was interesting about all this was, how could somebody know that I could use burdock on my burns? Was this smelled? But that's one of the little strange things that happens that we wonder about, because what other capabilities do they have that we don't understand or are unpublicized? Now, she wouldn't like it if I talked about it on the air, so I won't. But I will just say that I have a friend who has requested information from whoever's making the noise or whoever might be in the area. And she has gotten responses. In one response, she got a vocalization directed directly to her. It ended up vibrating her chest.
Wow.
In another situation, she got a sharp scream call right after she asked about, are you guys here? And so I tried this basically for the first time last September. And I was in a open meadow. Everyone was gone 2 to 2.5 miles away. I found out later. It was 10 o'clock when this happened. And I shouldn't even say this, but I'm going to for your benefit. We're paranormal here. I asked mentally, without saying a word, if you guys are here, could you let me know? Now I don't know who guys are, who you guys are. But I was referring to Sasquatches, hopefully. What happened 1 to 3 seconds later was whoop, whoop, and it was the most beautiful whoop in 2 syllables, whoop, that I've ever heard online. And it was only my second whoop that I've gotten in Wisconsin. Now, I was so happy and thanking them that I didn't think to say, that was fantastic. Can you do it again? Which is what I was told to do by another researcher who has had similar experiences. So are these things the same as the standard regular Sasquatches? Some people say no. Some people say yes. Some people say, I don't know. And I don't personally know. I think we have fragmented information. And as you say, it's be very wise for all of us to work together to put the pieces of the puzzle together. There's a lot of people that are not interested in going that route. And so there's not much I can do, because I'm not going to just hand over all my things to somebody for nothing back.
Exactly.
50-50, or even, something else out. But to be stalled on is difficult. That makes it hard to work with that person, because then you think, well, if something happens that we really need to know about, they're probably not even going to tell us.
Yep.
And those aren't the kind of people that I'm looking to work with. So anyway, that tells you a little bit more about me. I'm just trying to take everything in and learn as much as I can and share it with as many people as I think would benefit. And let's all learn and be happy and be pleased that we have this opportunity, because it can happen quickly and be gone.
Yep.
So
this is true.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, we are at the end of the show.
Really? Already?
Yeah, I know. An hour has gone by already. I would like to invite you on again so we can talk about some of your research.
Sure.
This is very, very interesting. Before I get you to tell the Haunted Hearts where they can find you, I just wanted to tell everyone that August 15th and 16th of this year, if anyone is available to attend, there is it's the second annual Sasquatch convention. It's in Gatineau, Quebec, just across the river from Ottawa, Ontario. I had the great pleasure of attending last year. Sabine Blais, she's an amazing lady. I had her on my show. I'm going to have her on again. And so it's going to be a 2-day event. Tickets are on sale. I can't remember if they're $40. I can't remember how much they are Canadian, but if you reach out to me, I can send you some more information. So whoever is interested, I met some amazing people last year. And Dan, I saw my very first casted Bigfoot print when I was there last year. I was giddy. It was so amazing. Like, it was huge.
Awesome.
I can't, and for the life of me, I can't remember who had brought it, but they let me take a picture with it, and I was holding it, and I was so terrified. I didn't want to drop it, because I would have been like, oh my, like, how do you come back from that? But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So August 15th and 16th of this year, reach out to me if anyone's interested in attending. There's going to be an amazing event again. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have a little vendor's table, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So Dan, could you please tell the Haunted Hearts, my listeners, where they can find you?
Sure. On Facebook, I am Dana Nedrelo. Send me a message, write to me. If you Google me, it'll be like my website. You'll be busy for a while. I would suggest that your viewers check out Nedrelo, pheromones. That was my first field operation in Oklahoma with the Bigfoot Field Research Organization. And we did use pheromones to see if we could get action. And we did. We got activity.
Nice.
As far as getting a hold of me, I would suggest a couple of places also you could write to me. I've got some Facebook Sasquatch groups that I think your audience would find interesting. One is Wild Man Literature. Most of our authors and book publishers are in there. There's over 1,000 people in there.
Wow.
Another is Art and Data, Sasquatch Witnesses. You can go there and say, Dan, what's up? And we can talk privately. I'm interested in footprint pictures, especially ones with resolution. I'm interested in audio. I'm interested in anecdotal information. In other words, my Uncle Bob had an experience down in such and such valley in 2016, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm interested in all of that. And if you had a really good observation close, let's see if we can draw it. If I can't, maybe some of my artists can, and bring that observation to life. Hopefully those are some good ways to get a hold of me. Like I said, if you Google me, you'll probably find my phone number. And okay. I'm not hard to find.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan, for being on here. I'm so happy to have had you on the show, and it's really great to meet you.
Oh, vice versa. I'm looking forward to a lot of things, and you know, you can coach me up down the road as I do some similar things. So that would be great.
We'll chat about that. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm just going to take you out of the
system.
Yeah, just for a minute, just to say farewell to the audience. So if you could hang tight for a couple minutes, we'll have a little chat. So yeah, I thank you again.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to my special guest today, Dan, and to you, my wonderful haunted hearts, for tuning in. I also want to thank UPRN 107.7 New Orleans and 105.3 the Gulf Coast for carrying the show. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. It truly does mean the world to me. And if you'd like to be on the show, have guest or topic ideas, or just want to say hello, or even just tell me where in the world are you listening to this show right now, that is so interesting to me. Drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. And also, so yeah, I'm just so excited. I love doing this show. So until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. Much love to you all.